Okay, no messing about, straight into episode 2 where we'll actually start the build. Hey ho, let's go. So we left last time with this in clamps. I've left the glue to dry kind of overnight, so it should be good and dry by now. So I'll just start to get the clamps off it and see how we've done. Now on one of these clamping cauls I did remember to put some tape. So that's come off quite nicely from there. The other one, not so much. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of remedial work there. And that did stick quite well. And it has pulled a little bit up. But I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. I might just stick a little bit of glue in there and glue it back down, but I'm pretty confident that that's going to be at least in the neck pocket, if not cut away altogether. So I'm not going to panic about that at all. I'll just get those last two clamps out. And you can see what we've been left with. And there's a little bit of cleaning up work to do. We'll probably have to do a little bit of planing. But other than that, I'm very happy with the way that that's come out. There's no real discernible glue joint to be seen, which is very, very good. And I don't actually think there is a huge amount to clean up on here. There's a little bit of a steps, probably about 1/2 mil or so. And I'm just taking this off across the grain until we get kind of rid of that little step, and it's mostly gone now. And for the time being, that's going to be more than adequate. There is a little bit of kind of unevenness that needs to be worked out of this, but you need to bear in mind that we're going to be cutting a fair amount of this away once we shape the body. And when you do that, you take off the extremities, which will lessen the amount of unevenness and just give you a much smaller area to work on. So for the time being, I'm actually happy to leave this side as it is. So there's a little bit more work to do on this to get it ready for cutting out, but I'm going to do that off camera because, to be honest, it's not that interesting. So we can get rid of this for the time being because we're going to need a template. We're going to need a lot of templates, but for the time being, I'm just going to do the template for the external shape of the body. I'll make the templates as we go along because they are quite time consuming and not particularly interesting to watch. So we'll get this to one side, and we can get the plans, such as they are, onto the bench. Now, I got a really good set of plans from a company called Lone Star Guitars. However, they come on a massive document, and the printer I've got prints it in multiple A4 sheets. And there's about 20 of them for this one. So I haven't done the whole thing to start with. I've got this kind of basic pictorial view of the guitar for the first instance. That can be used for a number of the templates, such as the pick guard and the outside of the body. But for now, I'm just going to focus on the outside shape of the body. And if you haven't seen me do this before, it has been a little while since I've done one on camera. I basically tape the plan down to a board just to keep it in one place. And then I just take some of this really cheap tracing paper that I get on a roll, get it from Amazon, costs about £5 a roll, something like that. And I'll just cut out a suitable size piece. And then I'll take that down as well. Normally, guitar bodies fit well within the confines of this paper. There's not much spare on this one, shows you how big it is. And then with that done, just take a nice sharp pencil and my favourite French curves, and I'm just going to kind of start in one place, just find a suitable curve and then start working my way around, just tracing out the body shape. What I've often found is that the shape of French curves hasn't changed much over the years, and I think it's very likely that these designs were drawn out with a very similar set of French curves, because they always seem to fit quite nicely. And then when I've gone all the way around this, I will glue this piece of paper to a sheet of MDF and we'll cut that out, and that will be our body template. Well, that's the body shape all drawn out. It's got this kind of elongated section in the front for the neck pocket, which is quite big on this guitar. And every time I look at this, I think I've got it backwards, because this irregular body shape just looks completely upside down and back to front to me, but I'm sure I will get used to it as we go along. So with that done, we can get this off the drawing. And we'll get it stuck down onto a bit of MDF. And all I'm going to do is, I've got some 6mm MDF here, which will be plenty for what we need. And I'm just going to stick this down with some bog standard PVA. It is just big enough, but it'll be absolutely fine. So get some PVA on the go and get this glued on. Now you can use spray mount to do this job. I prefer PVA. It takes a little bit longer to dry, but it's not as messy. Just find the spray mount goes bloody everywhere. It makes everything sticky. Whereas this will dry quite nicely. It won't be a problem. I'll try and utilise my best wallpapering skills. Now some of you might be thinking, what's the point in tracing this rather than just printing 2 copies and cutting one of the copies up? I prefer to do the tracing method mainly because it gives you a little bit more time kind of getting to know the body shape and kind of understanding the intricacies of what's going on. A good example of that is the neck joint area. From the section of the plan I'm working from, it isn't really obvious how this should go. So I had to do a little bit of digging and investigating, and it turns out that there's actually several types of body to neck joints used on Mosrites over the years, and on this particular model it is significantly different, and that extension of the body underneath the neck is correct, as we can see here in this picture of Johnny's guitar. You'll also notice that there's no neck plate used on the guitar. I did mention that in the first episode, and I'm going to use ferrules, so I've got a more secure neck joint. But I'm a little bit dubious about the spacing of the bolts in this one. I think instead I should use a more even spacing, even if it's not going to be correct. I think it's going to be technically and functionally better. Let me know in the comments if you think that deviation from the original is the correct thing to do. And please, while you're down there, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Okay, so we can now leave this to kind of dry up overnight. And we'll come back tomorrow and cut this template to shape. So having left this overnight for the glue to dry up, I've just got it over to the bandsaw and kind of roughly cut it to shape. I'm having a little bit of an issue with the bandsaw at the moment. One of the grub screws for adjusting the guides has seized in place, so I can't adjust the guides as well as I'd like to, which is a little bit of a problem, causing me a little bit of an issue. But we'll just get it as close as we can with this dodgy setup, and then we'll get it over to the disc sander and start to get it kind of dialed into the shape that we want before finally finishing off on the bobbin sander, just on the kind of hard to reach concave areas. And this is what we end up with. One kind of nice looking template. In theory, I could have just stuck the paper template to my body blank and cut round that and got exactly the same result. I'm not going to route this body to shape. I'm purely going to use this as a guide for marking out. I haven't got an operating table router at the moment, so it's just as quick and easy to cut it to shape on the bandsaw and then sand it into shape than it is to kind of route it handheld from the top. So from that perspective, the template could be kind of superfluous, but I always make templates. There is always the chance that someone else will want one of these guitars, and if I've got the templates, it makes the whole deal a lot easier. So it really is worth the effort for me to actually go and make them. Okay, with that done, we can now get the body blank back on. And we can start to decide what's going to go where. However, in this instance, it really doesn't matter that much because this is going to be painted. There's no figure in the wood. We're not trying to specify something to look beautiful. It is just a matter of where it's going to fit. Now, if I do it that way, we've got a little bit of overhang on the top. So it's going to have to be kind of whichever way it's going to fit on. And that looks like the puppy. In theory, I could cut this shape out of anywhere on this blank and it wouldn't matter, but there's just something that makes me do 2-piece body blanks along the join, so that's what we're going to go with. So before we do anything, I'm just going to put a pencil line down there so we know it's our body centre line. Line that all up nicely. And we'll just draw all the way around it. Fire that back over to the bandsaw and get it all cut out. Okay, and there we have the body shape cut out. There's still a little bit of cleaning up work to do. It occurred to me halfway through sanding that my oscillating spindle sander was no longer oscillating, so I might have to have a look at that, see if I can fix it. If not, a new one looks to be on the horizon. To be fair, I've had that one quite a long time and it's done a lot of work, so hardly surprising that it's given up the ghost. But we managed to get most of this done on it, and we are now pretty much at a stage where we can move on to the next bit, which is going to be getting some of the routes put in place for the controls and the pickups, etc. However, I think we've done enough on this episode, so I'm going to leave that till next time. So, as always, if you've enjoyed this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and please leave me a comment. It's always nice to know what people think of these projects. Anyway, I'll be back in a couple of days' time with the next episode. Until then, thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.